Warning, this video may contain opinions that differ from yours. Viewer discretion is advised. Well, hey Gundam Maniacs, welcome to another episode of Gundam Explained. Yeah, we're on episode 19, of which for Mercury it's called Not the Best Way. You know, the funniest thing I see when I look online is people calling this episode 19 or season 2 episode whatever. I wonder what's official. Does anyone know out there? Because, you know, on Crunchyroll, it's just episode 19, but I see season 2 thrown around a lot. But anyway, let's get started. But before we get started, if you haven't, please subscribe. If you think this is a cool video, give it a like. Check the links in the description for ways you could support the channel, get access to exclusive behind the scenes, exclusive podcasts, other random stuff that I'll throw out there every once in a while. But let's get started. All right, this episode starts out pretty strong because it's quickly just diving into some cool world building stuff. We're seeing some Earth entry from space using the permit technology for that. So it's like, you know, the spaceship moves in. A little capsule kind of breaks off and follows the permit lines down into Earth. Yeah, you see the little lines, and we see that a lot in Gundam, and I guess it's done in different ways where there's, you know, a set of lights that are just floating around in space. However, the technology used that does that, and for this, I guess it's the permit system. Really cool exchange with Ghoul and Miorne, because again, his character, Ghoul, is awesome. Just the way his character's unfolding. If any character is super interesting to me in this, that's kind of consistent and relatable, I think it's Ghoul. They're going down to do negotiations, and I like how seriously Ghoul's wanting to take this, even wanting to make sure, you know, Miorne is doing it correctly. I mean, it really is cool how we've seen Ghoul transform. Or Bob. Uh-oh, looks like some backstabbing is getting figured out around here. So, again, a lot of dynamics in this show in general, where it's really based on, you know, specific interests of people, background information. You know, I've been told a lot of this show, you know, there's a difference between that show and tell aspect. This show tends to show things for a while and then eventually tell you, oh, look at that, the Char clone is ready to get into action. I mean, I guess he's been relegated to painting nails. I mean, is that so bad? And again, a lot of exposition here of things we already understand, the dynamics between Spacians, Earthians, and they're just kind of going through it again. So, you know, this is kind of an example of where they're just kind of dragging a concept that we do understand as the viewer. But again, I don't want to downplay the effect that dramatic anime characters have on people, where sometimes that's what they're watching it for. So I get it. Awesome shots here as they're moving into Earth at the harbor, Quinn Harbor or something like that. I think there's a name for it. But also you're seeing like the different skyscrapers or larger, taller buildings that the shuttle pods kind of go into. All right, now look at the highways and the cars during this time period. No, the highway's pretty empty, and that could have been maybe due to protests or something that are going on. But it is interesting seeing what these, you know, kind of security limousine cars look like. And Miorne's calling out like the mobile suits that are escorting them, and how she wants to seek a peaceful solution. So it kind of looks bad rolling in with a whole bunch of mobile suits. Oh, and look who else has shown up here. I'm sure it's for a good reason, right? And then Rizzion just kind of explaining what is happening, but maybe just to give him some time for people that want to see him, but it's not like this is not anything we don't know. Now, this is pretty interesting because we're seeing these characters sprinkled in slowly of their point of view of the plot as it's unfolding. And, you know, a lot of times we see them show up and I'm like, okay, so what's going to happen? But stuff happens this time. Yeah, a lot of characters, again, using other characters. If it's not for getting information, blackmailing, it's for painting nails. All right, we're seeing the protests here. So this is more along the lines of the things I'm more interested in, how the characters then react to the world they're in around them. Because for me, everything since the original Gundam, my main interest was the world. You know, for the first episode of the first Gundam that ever existed, you're seeing just what happens to Frabo and Amuro Ray as the colony is getting attacked. So that is the world, something we're seeing the world unfolding, and then the characters navigating that. And Miorne even says like they don't even have weapons. They really just want us to hear their voices. So I think that's a very good distinction here, because the point is to show that the Earth isn't really trying to do anything forceful. They're just really trying to be heard. Now, it was interesting that Ghoul ran into the kid he saw before when he was a captor on Earth. And this actually changed Gould's mind at the time, because then he's not as interested in being part of the negotiations as he is wanting to do a little investigating on his own. Okay, so Mjolnir's starting to talk to the Earth representatives here, and they really don't care. And I think this is where, when there's expositionary dialogue in place, this is probably done well, because they're speaking in terms of the world they are in, and it is less about one character not liking the other or mad at the other for doing this. And I think another thing that happens here that is what is really part of these character-driven dramas is that as an audience, we're shown things that are happening, but the characters actually don't even tell themselves. They go multiple episodes without just explaining themselves to each other. And then eventually later on, they do. I think that's where I feel like sometimes I'm just being dragged along for a long time. But this is a good example of really getting to the point, because we're getting from the Earthians' point of view, from high up, the executive level, of how they are seeing everything unfold, starting with seeing the protesters without the weapons. I think that was key here. So they don't trust Mjolnir until she really gets to the point that we want to build the mobile suits, the technology used to help people, medical based, and not weapons. And they're all telling her, we don't believe you because of the attacks that have been carried out. Obviously, there are people above you making decisions. That's where she's saying, well, I plan to be president. That's what I want to do. I want to be president. I want to make that change occur. So they're like, okay, well, then we'll ask the protesters to stand down. We'll give you some time to get you to become president, so then you can make those things happen. And we're back here again, just still seeing Nika here. This scene that's going on again, the only point really of it is to show that other Earthian girl, how sad it is that Sophie passed. Like, she kind of got emotional at that moment. You know, it has really nothing to do with the world, just some character development progress that, again, I feel like that could have been discussed earlier before, but hey, we're here now. They're showing it. It's like, yeah, I get it. And interesting to see the different drawings as he flips through the book of this little journal that she's drawing in. Just seeing nature, peaceful sort of imagery, and then seeing some things that are a little more gruesome. I think that's just showing that there's different sides to the character. So that's pretty cool. You know, again, not too big of a deal to me, but this is what this show does. All right, 12 minutes in, I think we're going to see more Suletta stuff going on here. I guess her stomach's growling, which is pretty funny, kind of showing us what is Suletta's motivation for getting out of her room. One of the Earthians see her up getting food. I think it was Choo Choo. So they grab her, pull her to go meet with everybody, you know, to sit down and eat. So this is kind of a way, I guess, to get Suletta maybe more active again. And then, so I guess there's an issue with the food, so they had to use the nicer food, more natural food. I guess something had to do with the goat milk, and they're just showing Suletta enjoying the taste of it. This is a show of, you know, I guess Suletta's appreciation, you know, being born on Mercury, being used to Earth, or what her mom's always told you. Now she's getting more integrated with Earthian culture. Again, this is like a show of her starting that, so I'm sure they will tell us about it later. Again, another tell here. So, 19 episodes in, finally, literally spelling it out for the audience, Nika's intentions. And I just remember how crazy it was when they showed that episode where she was signaling for them not to fire on the ship. And I would get comments of people saying, like, yeah, she's a terrorist, she's bad. And it was like, well, no, I think it's pretty obvious that that's not the case. And luckily, they're actually spelling it out. Yes, it's exposition that, again, I know they showed us before, but luckily it's there for people that, I guess, again, with a show like this, I'm noticing, again, especially with how people are speculating, some people aren't picking up on obvious shows, so they need to be told, which is very interesting. I wonder if that is a part of when creating any sort of narrative storytelling for a wide audience, you do have to sprinkle in that show and tell. Let's move on to the world building. I think the most interesting thing that's been happening so far are the talks, the negotiations between Mjolnir and Earth. This is actually setting up the bigger world building that the prologue set up, and then we haven't really gotten too much of. Martin is his name. I think I said Thomas earlier. Yeah, just some Earth name. Okay, so some cool conversations here, because, you know, Ghoul's having a more of a discussion with that kid. He brings up the prince. And so another show from before that has become what's been told here is, you know, Shadiq behind the scenes. He's from Earth. I guess, what's interesting is Ghoul kind of knew all of this, but the difference here is he's now like connecting the dots. So it's less that it's things characters didn't know, but now it's more like, oh yeah, that. So this is when Ghoul's then letting Mjolnir know about all this stuff. So again, not too surprising for the audience, but for the characters, you know, this is something Mjolnir has been pretty hard-headed a lot, and she, you know, she doesn't really take a lot of people seriously, especially Shadiq before. So I think for her, this is a very interesting reveal, which seems it's going to lead to something pretty amazing. So this is where now it's getting a little more interesting to me, because instead of relying on character interactions of past events, we're now moving forward, seeing characters' motivations actually being played out. Awesome shot. I mean, we're seeing this area rebuild in a different light now, being piloted, you know, by the Shar clone, Prospera, you know, Soleda's mom. And now this is where like the death and destruction is occurring. So what's interesting here is, you know, the Earth and the protesters agreed, you know, to lay down their weapons, even though generally the protesters didn't, but just kind of the force of Earth to not fire, that they're going to do some negotiations using the permit technology in the aerial. She was able to get one of the tanks to fire on her just to say, hey, they opened fire, so let's destroy them. Soleda's mom is a maniac, and she is massacring people. Homes that Earth civilians are in. It's pretty crazy. Communication mode, Mjolnir Rembrandt, request for response. Now, this is pretty interesting because she's in this sort of hangar that has a whole bunch of these Earth-based, more of, I guess, the bad guy style suits, and really Soleda just wants to take them out, which, I mean, on face value, sure, that makes sense, and then Soleda's mom doesn't necessarily need to be such a bad guy, but then she goes out for more death and destruction. And so what they're really just confirming here is that, yes, in space, there are two groups. On Earth, there are two groups. And so it just makes this weird, you know, Venn diagram thing of, you know, people wanting to have, people having different interests, groups having different interests in fighting. So anyone could be a bad guy to anyone else. Now, it's crazy seeing that lady that we saw earlier try to help Mjolnir get to Earth in the first place, now being shot. And it's by none other than Shadiq's dad or adoptive father. So there must be, this is where this part is unfolding. This is a lot more interesting for me because we are now seeing the character motivations be played out on screen. And I would assume this is going to impact what next episode? Yeah, is 20. What an even number to go on, where I would assume, and I've been wrong before, that then the show was going to kind of kick into that world building of this is really the reality the characters are in, and now the characters have to react to that. Pretty cool shot here, because we're just showing Earth is in destruction. And the boys are sitting there. He's a little out of focus because the focus is on that mobile suit in the back. You know, this is something that's very similar in most Gundam shows anyway. This is this sort of imagery right here. Prospera Mercury was onto us after all. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was obvious from the start. And I would have been scared of Prospera this whole time. Yeah, she was the one to side with or take out. I mean, that's the thing. By now, who other than potentially Shadiq's dad, who is really in Soleda's mom, Prospera? Like, it's very interesting seeing it unfold to where, again, this next episode 20, it's going to have to take a drastic change because all these, it's now turned everything upside down for the characters in a way where we've been waiting for it because it's been shown to us, the viewer. So yeah, they're showing on the news Mjolnir as the Benerit group's representative as they went to Earth, and now they've declared war. It says down here, in response to Benerit group's attack, Earth Independence Movement leader declares that they will join fight for independence, with Benerit forces dispersed as explosions take place throughout the city. Fierce fighting develops between the two sides. What the hell is Mjolnir doing? Okay, so again, what I was saying before, I believe episode 20 is going to have to go into a crazy direction But all the things we've seen happening, the buildup of all these different sides that have their different motivations of backstabbing, blackmailing. It'll be interesting to see what happens next. All right, and there we have it, episode 19. It did drag a little for me because really it was just exposition heavy. It was just going through the motions of a lot of the things we already understood. I do think that the coolest thing we got out of it is Myorene's negotiations, like kind of getting a better understanding from that part of Earth, the more visible, the ones that they think they're in charge, and then seeing Prospera's mom go full Char clone, start attacking. So with it ending with that look on Soletta's face, her potentially being the main hero character of the show, I would assume she'd get that new Gundam, go out there and battle her mom, perhaps. That would be very interesting. Well, anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think below. And again, we all have different opinions, but I don't want you to be hurt. I've seen people say, oh, I'll try to be nice. And it's like, no, you should actually be nice in your response. This is just opinions. We all have different opinions, and that's okay. That's what's cool about being part of the Gundam fandom, is being nice to each other. Who cares if people have different opinions? That's why they have different Gundam shows to watch. I can watch something, cover it, and just be like, yeah, I don't really like it that much, but I'm going to cover it for my channel. But don't let that bother you. I'm not that big of a deal, although the engagement helps. Those comments back and forth, that really does help me out anyway. So anyway, guys, we'll talk later.